Welcome to Champions Network TV. Good evening and welcome again to this episode. I am Misha, your host, and I am honored to host tonight a vital conversation. Post-pandemic or post-COVID-19 inequalities growing, technology widening gaps, and limiting rights to education and justice and equity. The pandemic did not just shake our health system, it exposed the fault lines of our global society. While some nations and communities bounced back with a digital ease, others were left behind, locked out of classrooms, courtrooms, and even basic human rights. Tonight, we are not here to echo headlines. We are here to challenge them, to ask why does the digital revolution feels like a closed door for so many? How do we ensure that technology becomes a bridge, not a barrier, to justice, education, and equity? I am joined with a team of panelists uh, that are going to explore this topic. They are doers, they are disruptors who brings lived experience and deep insight from both the global north and the global south. Together, we will unpack the system that shaped inequalities and explore bold, actionable path forward. So, whether you are tuning in from Lagos, London, Harare, Halifax, Francistown, or Rwanda, this conversation is for you. Let's dive into it. So I give this opportunity to Jenna, who is joining us all the way from Zimbabwe. Over to you, Jenna.
Okay, good evening, viewers. Good morning, good night, good whatever time you are tuning into this, as this is a global thing. Right, so firstly, we would like to talk about the pandemic itself. I know there are a lot of stories that go around that pandemic to say some people say it was induced for by some people to benefit. It was something that was thrown to the earth by God. It was something that just came from Norway. There are so many things that, or myth about the COVID-19. But however, like Misha has just said, it is something that really shook the world. And the shaking actually took place from the richest to the poorest. Everyone was really affected by that. And it actually somehow brought people to know that every human being is important, regardless of the skin color, the area that you live, the richness, the poorness. But anyway, all having been said, we want to look at how that actually has widened the gap of inequality and the economies, how they are struggling, or how some are actually capitalizing on the pandemic that took place. So we also find that on its recovery, it started from say the medicines, where they originated, how they worked, and also there are some places where those medicines they never reached, but still people survived. And bringing again to the point to say, was it really necessary for the medicines to be availed, or was it also a continuation of doctoring that pandemic to suit other people's economic being? I think I've put a lot of questions into the discussion.
Yeah, there are a lot of questions, sure, that we have posed to for this panel to unpack. Uh,
Mm.
you first find out, was it humanly induced? Was it thrown from God, or did it just not come from nowhere? And if so, uh, how is then the pandemic widening the economic growth path, and yeah, and the availability of medicine being there, being disparity over there. So uh, back to the panel.
I think people have forgotten what happened during COVID.
Right.
Because
Okay.
after
Let's
the pandemic, we
what
actually
what
say it's a new world.
what
A new world was
happened?
created.
What happened during pandemic?
Mm.
Eh, eh, Mr. Sandy, where were you during pandemic?
I was in England. I started noticing pandemic, the COVID-19, especially just like when we had what was before COVID, some other can't remember now. Something happened in Sierra Leone, and I remember in a group I told them, let's demonstrate that the world to know this. What's the name now? This river, is it river? So it started in Congo and it spread in West Africa, wherein a lot of people also suffered and died. But the COVID-19 started, I was working and I had some students that came to shadow me. And those one of them is Chinese. And she told me, do you know where you're working there is COVID-19 patients lying down there? I said, you are joking. Mm. I told my manager, I'm not going to work there. They said, oh, you don't want to work. You're always giving excuses. I said, okay. I requested. They did it. I didn't go to work. I stayed home. I said, I'm going to do my work from home. Because the lady really told me she's currently a consultant now because she came from Oxford. She said, yes, I've noticed there's COVID on your wall. And that was very, very serious for me. So I stayed home. And they started saying, if I want to resign, I said, yes, I want to resign. Okay, they encourage us to go into a hall. So, cut it short, the four patients I have, all of them died on that ward. I was very
Oh,
lucky. I never went to them. I never. I requested everything to be posted to me through faxing. And I interviewed them, but it's sad. I don't have to say it's real. And I felt so sad. That was just 2 weeks because I wanted to pick their care plan for panel. And I have to attend. But when I said it, my manager said, you are just a lousy big man. So, all right. One of the nurses had the attack. Another person had the attack. And then it became serious. And they started withdrawing people from the war. They started saying, let's do it by all these set of things. I mean, it's a painful thinking when I think about the whole exercise. But coming to the real topic of the disadvantages, I mean, it depends on where you are. In England here, it affected a lot of us. Some people didn't even have jobs. They were just there. And the government, our Boris Johnson, who was there by then, they were smiling when people were crying. Their loved ones were dying, no medicine. And even the kind of medicines they applied, it was just a kind of, scratch my back. Not really. But one of the
Mm,
things we Africans, I was telling the host, that we Africans are not recognizing some of these things. When this massive debt occur all over the world, what did it turn to? Simple African things that they plant behind the houses. Ginger, lime,
mhm,
and some few others. They mix it up. I am a victim of that both ways. My elder sister it was intensive care in America for a very for almost a month and a half. And lately, my late wife passed away due to part of that. So it's a very hard topic when it's only because I help the host to discuss about it. So, I mean, the disadvantages, they are there depending on where you are. Africa, we cannot go. One of the disadvantages, all the routes of any trading was disabled. It took them a long time. And wherein people died, they have to take their relatives home. That was tough. But I would say I was lucky. My own wife, I have to take her. And even when they said the first flight that went to the country after how many months, they were not expecting. I said, they agreed when the second round lockdown. But the economic effects spread everywhere, even the rich countries. I remember we rushed to one of the borough I was working for. When I went there, the supermarkets were cleared. People started
mm,
buying this toilet stuff, paste, pack their vehicles. That this COVID is going to continue forever and nobody will have to. I said, but if even you buy all the supermarkets in for you alone, you are not going to use everything. So why not give me one of the toilet rolls? Oh, come on, excuse me. They went with it. The next day, the shop was full. And then some of them were bringing it back to be resold. So my view, in a very simple, very common language with what we have been experiencing, it was really, really drastic. Our young men who like to be on the streets, we are kept indoors. Our young girls who used to be economically living on men telephone, nobody goes to nobody. So the
mm,
effects, it happened to the country. It shuts down. Don't open your windows because the air that is flowing will come,
mm,
and so all of us, we were stuck in. After that heavy lockdown, I have to be away in Sierra Leone. And the second lockdown in the country was, it captured me there. And that's where the demise of my late wife. It was really difficult because COVID had no mercy on anybody. But the only side of COVID, you didn't hear any serious politician to die from the people who died from it are nurses, doctors, and people who were working.
And I think
something has happened to your sound.
yeah, I think something. I think his network is
Okay, okay.
yeah. I think, but I think he has brought a lot of personal experiences, yeah, during the pandemic there, at the personal
Mm,
level and the personal loss and
mm,
right. And those who are watching us on either on YouTube or Facebook, if you have got any experiences, you can uh, share with
Yeah,
us.
I'm
Let
sorry. I'm sorry. There was a phone call, and I just tried to stop it, but my phone it will mess up. I mean, I'm
uh,
sorry. Yeah. So the economic effect has a lot. The disadvantage, the medications that we have brought, we are forced to take it. If you
mm,
don't want to, you can't even travel. I remember
mm,
going after 6 months indoors to 7 months indoors. I sit to work. Now I knew when it's the bed sore. I sit down, my backside. is getting that kind of stuff because I can't go anywhere. I can't drive anywhere. The only area I can collect my wife from the bus stop, bring her home. If I drive around, they will know, oh, you're being not at work. So that is some of my experience. I can't really go too deep. I mean, let's keep going. Maybe more will come, but this is a whole refresher and makes people feel very uncomfortable. But it's good to discuss it. It's a topic for the young ones who do not know, they didn't see it properly, to see it from that perspective. Professionally, it was training us. Yeah, you stay indoors whole day, whole night. It was a very good prison for us. You see?
Um, and let's come back to the topic itself. Is it true that it brings a widening of the economic disparities between the nation in the global north and those in the global south? When we say global north, we are talking about the Western world, including America. And when we talk about the global south, we are talking about the used to be called them third world countries, or they are coining some other terms like developing countries, whichever term you may want to
But,
throw in there.
but that's what I said. From where we are, what we saw, transportation was one of the greatest things. When you use the global trading was stopped. No planes going anywhere. So most of the countries we are banned. No planes. Nobody was going. Goods were not going. So that economic effect on the small petty traders or even big traders, distributors, had a great impact in certain places because all came from here. And here production fell a bit. As you can see, production fell. But again, they managed to manage it properly.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, I think in your comparison of the Westerners and the third world countries, there was a big difference because if you start from looking at the way, starting from even the communication, there being at times no Wi-Fi, no electricity. So even because if you look at the Westerners, people would work because they would work from home, Zoom meetings, everything. But when it came to these third world countries, you would find that organizations totally shut down because of that the communication part. And then if you look also further down, where apart from communication, we normally use manual things, how to work our daily chores. So with the pandemic, whereby people were not supposed to meet or people were not supposed to mix, it actually made everything so complicated and difficult.
Shumba, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening.
Mm.
I think Nathaniel is.
I'm having serious telephone calls, please. I'm having serious telephone calls, but let me just get rid of this person. I hope I
Okay.
will not go off again.
All right. Okay. If when you get a phone call, if you can just
I think I,
either.
I was able to manipulate my mobile quicker.
All right. Okay. So, so Shumba, I don't know what we have had so far. We had Jenna bringing the definition of the pandemic itself and giving us a thought-provoking questions of whether was it a human initiated, or did it come from God, or did it just came from nowhere, and whether other nations were benefiting from it, and the uneven distribution of medication. Then I think Nathaniel brought in home the personal experiences for of this pandemic or COVID-19. Then I was teasing further to say, is it true or is it false that it widened the economic gap between the global south and the global north? And so that's where we are, and you can come in with your thoughts.
Yeah. So I would like to say, not only did it widen the gap between the global south and the global north, it actually widened the inequality gap between even the industrialized countries within the developed economies. So what you find when the pandemic came, they printed a lot of money. They say the amount of money that was printed in the US during COVID, it surpasses the money that has been created for the past, I think, 60 years. But where did all that money go? It ended up in the hands of the very rich, because it favored people who had assets. So the money that the government was printing just migrated to those very rich people. So the rich have, out of the pandemic, the rich have become extremely rich. And then when you look at the disparities globally now, it's like the global south, were at the both the brunt of the pandemic, both in terms of not having the capacity, like in terms of resources to deploy when the pandemic hit. I think I got in when Jenna was saying when the pandemic came, most of our systems couldn't cope because already we live in digitally poor societies. We don't have that connectivity that we find in the West. We have got poor power access. We've got poor digital access. So because all the systems were shut down, you had to migrate to use the online or digital platforms. But those are non-existent in most of the global south. So which means all the wealth from the global south had to flow again to the global north. So the disparities that were created after COVID, I think if you see how the world is in turmoil now, I could actually ascribe the all the problems that I are seeing is due to income inequality, and nations or peoples are trying to survive despite all those problems, and this has festered problems that people now begin to fight to try and get the little resources that are available. So that's my take from what's going on, from the post-COVID crisis, what it brought on the world.
Soko, good morning.
Jena muri senyu
Tirimo muCOVID.
ndatenda hangu kokudenda kokundimukirira. Hi guys. I'm sorry.
Right. So
Hello,
if you
how
go,
are you?
okay, if you go into the rights to education, and I remember when this happened, I was still in Cape Town. We had, fortunately, at our the places that we were in, we had very little challenges concerning the communication and maybe the teaching of the learners. We had a bit of a lesser challenge compared to other districts or other provinces. But because remember, at the end of the year, a national exam had to be written. So it ended up now being turned against us now to say, no, why are you teaching the people when the other people in the remote areas can't do the same things, yet they will write the same exam. So there were a lot of challenges and a lot of adjustments done even to the curriculum so that people could try to catch up. And I don't even know what is going to happen to the people that actually studied that syllabus, which was tailored to suit the pandemic. Because I was an educator by that time, and there were a lot of topics that were actually being pulled out of the syllabus to say, no, don't go on this, don't go on this. But people had to still go on. So which means that gap is still going to be with us, it's going to haunt for quite some time.
You're
You're on mute,
muted.
Munja.
Okay.
On the other hand, again, there were a few people that gained from that. A few changes that came educationally made things very progressive. And sometimes you will find out there was disadvantage. Most of the children at that time who were around 14, 12, 14 in England, what they will have to suffer, the parents have to go to work, especially nurses. How will the child sit on the computer alone to be having lessons? They will be doing that, phone is ringing, something. So the point you brought in educational, there was serious inequalities in that. But again, when you look at the workers, there are few workers who are given opportunity to work from home. Yeah, to work from home. And that really was rampant with some of us, and the host also was a man who enjoyed that facility. And the issue about that was you are stuck in a prison room in your own house. The best you can do, you don't pay to go out, but you really be indoors till 5 o'clock. So it was always, I don't think anybody won over that in any form. Even those who got a lot of money, and I had friends in America who were saying they were nurses, they used to make 5,000, 6,000 a week because of going to work, spend 16, 17 hours at work. And sometimes we'll be there 2 or 3 days before going home. So the disadvantage and the advantage were quite a bit, I'm not sure if the South, Global South, really experienced that, because the second part of the pandemic, if I can say, both West Africa area, which I knew about, some were not really too, it was not too hard on them, like here in this country when the weather will keep you indoors. The winter was very severe and so forth. So the imbalances are there, but it's just a disease, a pandemic. We should not allow it ever in our own time to come or even after. But it has, because everywhere, even like changes in churches, we used to take communion by Father giving us the bread, and then they started putting it in our hand. You stand in line to go to church, and sometimes you can't even go. So it affected every corner of our lives. Really, some will say they gained from it, and some will say we did it. It shouldn't be around again forever. We had masks on, which we could not, we have to. But it brought in development, to be frank. And look what we are talking now. You are in Zimbabwe, I'm in England. My other brother is in South Africa, my sister is there. So look how closer are we. It was only that really brought everybody to be using this kind of communication. So we can say no win, no gain. That's my view. I don't know why everybody. Come on, say something, guys, if I spoke rubbish.
Makombe, welcome.
Yeah.
You're muted. Soko.
Let me listen for a bit, Jenna. So,
Okay, like what has just been said, to say there are some advantages that were brought in, and you also find some people actually got some opportunities for some business to actually grow. For instance, those people that made some those medication. But I think I want to come back to the issue. If you look at the numbers, the issue of the numbers of the people that were dying and how they were being treated. If you look at the third world, if you look at Africa, the numbers seems to be, I don't know if I've got the correct numbers to say, it looked like it was a bit lesser in Africa than in where you are guys,
Yes,
the Western world.
far.
But one thing that I realized is that you people in the Western side, of course, yes, you ended up inventing the medicine there, but you didn't look at us to say, how were we surviving? How were we making the ends meet? What made the numbers to be low in Africa? Because I've just heard someone has just talking now about the ginger, what have you right outside, and but it helped. It actually
It,
had a
it,
big impact, but it wasn't taken up now, which means we
no.
always come back to that diversity where we're actually changing things to say, okay, we can't promote this coming from there. My arguments always come back to that.
Yes. Yes. I told the host, they never, that's why I tell you, tell me any medicine made in Africa.
Mm.
No medicine. Nothing is being made from Africa. Even when it's the Amazon and Africa, they are getting all the medicine stuff from the bush, from the forest. That's where these pharmaceuticals send big ships. People bring all those leaves, they come and mess it around. But tell me, which one? Even our big brother, South Africa, Nigeria, I haven't seen anything coming out. So these are the things we got to look at. All our medicines are shit. But in the end, when people, my sister was in intensive care, and somebody said, "Get that ginger, get this, get that." When the nurses go away, you go and give it. The woman who was in intensive care for almost 3 weeks, when that thing started operating on her, she smiled. We FaceTime, and I was smiling. So these little things we overlook. We have it, but we don't. We don't. That's why sometimes when people say Africa, we are rich. Yes, we are rich, but we have to have the ability how to make it become rich. You can't say you have soil, you don't know how to plant. You can't say you have diamond, you don't know how to dig the diamond and make use of it. That is our area. We have that. It shouldn't have happened. COVID was not for, if it was any other thing, AIDS, when they started it, they say it's monkeys. Because it was there, they said it's monkeys. But when it started, countries like Italy, the amount of people who started dying in Italy was very high. In America, the amount of people who died, I can't say England now. I mean, there were numbers growing up, we see. But Africa, even if people were dying, in most countries, the report will be very little. They will not talk about it because the media is not for us. The media is not friendly to us. They will only show where fighting is occurring, killing is occurring, but where they know that sickness was what? It was not covered. You see what they did?
But
But every day you open telly, you will see people dying, and they start covering it up. They didn't try to show a lot now because it was very, very pathetic and it was sad. So
But political media is our responsibility. It's not the world's responsibility. We can't police ourselves. And political media
I think
is alive.
Makombe again. Yeah, on what Makombe is bringing up, I think I'll support that, because you know what happens is at times we have to blame ourselves for that, because when you discover something, the protocol is so cumbersome and discouraging to follow, to end up claiming that this is your medicine and you can now talk of publicizing and doing this and that. But you have seen that it's working. So as a result, you end up trying to align to find someone maybe from the Westerners by hook and crook, so that at the end of the day now it will then be published when with the person who is a Westerner. That's how
I
we
think
complicate our lives.
when
Um,
it comes to Africa, we wait for validation. Because at the moment we are saying they don't recognize us, they don't do this. Why don't we recognize ourselves?
Yeah, we don't
Exactly.
have
The
any
EU have got
accreditation
their own
houses.
rules, they've got their own laws. Why can't we just live by our own rules and recognize ourselves, and we make our own medication? And because when push comes to shove, they all came to Africa
Yeah.
for COVID medication. I
Mhm.
mean, we survived with ginger, we survived with onions, things that our grandfathers were doing long time ago.
Yeah.
But we wait for them to validate that. That's why they take over.
I think there's a tendency in human behavior to what we call recent bias, recent bias. When we talk of recent bias, is you only looking at a short term period in human history. We forget these pandemics have happened so many times. All these problems that humans face, like famines, like pandemics, like you name it, they've always existed together with human beings. That's why even in if you listen to some of our grandmothers or grandfathers speak, they talk about these things, that such a year was a terrible year, and it was passed, the memory of that year was passed through the generations, to say there was this terrible year of hunger, there was this terrible year of a pandemic, right? They managed through their own means of finding solutions to those pandemics, to that kind of hunger. But for us, I think been uh, we have been tuned. You know,
To
when
colonize.
you're constantly being given things like, "Oh, you need aid, you need aid." So we've become over reliant that we can't think for ourselves to say what solutions are best fit for us. So we wait for,
Brainwashed from the
yeah,
curriculum.
we wait for when the pandemic hit, we are waiting for
Handouts.
the medication from the West.
Mm.
The whole of the continent of 1.4 billion people. You
Yeah,
can't tell me
but
we
then
don't have the
that's our
brains.
fault. We don't
Yeah,
create enough.
it
Yeah,
is our
Mm,
fault.
yeah.
mm.
We
Yeah,
can't
Yes.
keep on blaming to say the West this, the West that. We need to wake up and
You can't. The
develop
thing
our
is,
capacities in all the areas that we feel
yeah.
like it enhances our future generations.
The thing is, you can't keep blaming your neighbor for your own hunger.
no.
Exactly.
If you look at it on smaller terms, you can't go to your neighbor and say, "My family is starving because of you. Can you give me food?" That's what we are doing. Because I think one
We
brother from Sierra Leone, was it that the other
yeah,
guy, who
yeah,
said we need to set up our own protocol.
yeah.
We need to set up our own protocol like Asia has
We
done it.
need another. We need our own Red Cross. We need our
Yes,
own type of
everything.
Oxfam.
We need our own rules,
Yeah.
economic policies. We need to set our own, not wait for people to come with their rules and impose them on us.
You know, Soko, I was saying to someone when he said, "Oh, they were crying when USAID was shut down." I say, "Why are you crying? Where is Zim aid? Yeah, where is African aid? Always you want to depend on other people. Why are we not setting up those institutions, starting with Zim aid, which is Zimbabwean, that looks after its people?" Africa Aid that looks after the continent. We always want to be receiving, to be running around with a begging bowl. I think that concept. I think what I like when Nathaniel spoke, there were advantages that came with the COVID. I think it woke us a bit from our slumber to say we had become so over-reliant on others to do things for us. It's time
We've
we
been
wake
like
up.
that for years, guys.
Yeah.
Our core structures have been like that. If you look back, we had government schools, mission schools. What's that? Those are reliance programs.
And then we turn around and say, our guys turn around, I'm a man. How are you a man if you go begging to your neighbor every day? How do you say I'm a man? Because your neighbor, if you go to your neighbor every day to get food, to get medication, your neighbor owns you. So we are owned by the West. We are owned by the West, and then we complain, oh, they don't love us. Why would they love us? We are like dogs. They are feeding us every time. We don't produce anything. Ginger is ours. Aloe vera is ours. But guess what? We are buying it.
Because you're in a position to you're creating willing buyer, willing seller transaction.
And they know it.
Yeah.
They're telling us about ginger.
It's just like China. China has started creating, herbal plants, herbal laboratories across the world.
But China is yet.
Fungai is busy. You want to contribute. He says in Shona Uyataur, I think it was when Shumba was talking, and he's going to translate it into English for the sake of Nathaniel, who is with us.
Right, Misha. Our argument when we start talking about these stories, we will come back to the issue of education and curriculum. That's where we get that we are actually mandated to take the Westerners as the know-all people. That's why
education is nothing to do with that, though. Education isn't something you rehearse. It's something you are taught. It's rehearsed knowledge. It's not designed to make anybody.
Yeah, but Makombe, if you say that, the software that is put in, what I think Jenna is trying to say, even if you say it's rehearsed knowledge, that's the software that's being put in our heads from the moment in grade 1 to form to advanced level. That rehearsed knowledge is the software that's in our brains.
Yeah.
We are not being taught to be inventive or to go out and do things for ourselves.
Creativity doesn't come with what you have. It's about going outside the domains of what you already know. That's where the problem is. If we say, okay, if you go to Japan, right, kids facilitated the lesson. Say, what are we going to talk about? Whereas, in our system of education, the teacher has done the scheming, the teacher has done the planning. He's going to tell us this garbage in, garbage out. He's going to do A, B, C, D. So everything is well formulated and formatted. Whereas in other structures, they are simply saying, okay, it's an open game. Tell us what you think. Learning by adventure. The adventure learning bit we don't have in our system. That's why we keep saying, this curriculum you keep talking about has to be eradicated.
Number one,
you brought in color, and color was a total disaster. Yeah. A big disaster.
The amount of time we spend learning European history and don't even talk about that one.
I think just to try to put together the thinking of Shumba and what Makombe is talking about. I think I will talk about what I will just related to the as they call it, allegory of the cave, where people are chained in a cave with a particular educational system, which is the thing they know. Then there are a few like Bakombe and the others who have broke away from that chain and gone out and see that there is a different world out there. The question is, how do those who have now an enlightenment, knowing that the rehearsed knowledge doesn't work for us, how do we then come and help those who are still chained in the educational system, who still thinks going to university is the route to good life?
Like they just said, the whole curriculum needs to be scrapped.
Yeah.
That's what they just said. The whole curriculum does not work because it's we are not supposed to look to the side. We are taught to be slaves. Yeah. Because when you finish your master's, your PhD, you look for that job, and you are waiting to get that job. People are waiting years and years looking for that. I'm a trained accountant. I've got a PhD. Now I can't find a job.
Now that accountants have become absolute, what are you going to do? Because
I'm going to wait
for has come to take over.
And we've got people who got 2 masters, 3 master's degrees, 4 master's degrees. For what? Well, where are you going with that?
You can borrow me one.
What are you going to do? 4 jobs.
Yes.
I need 4 jobs.
And I think when we are talking about the technology there, let's not forget that we are also in the AI space now as we speak.
The AI space is more dangerous than we think.
But what we have to remember about this.
I had an opportunity to talk to somebody about this today. Do you know about AI? What does it say to your mind? I don't know. These are some of the fraternities we are missing. That boat is sailing without us, big time. And if we don't make an attempt to get on board, then it will be very difficult.
You see, now, this is the issue that
what I wanted to say to all of us. What I want to say to all of us, like if 7 of us, no, 6 of us are all from the same country, and we have different languages, different traditions, different customs. It makes this whole thing they brought upon us, what they call Scramble for Africa. You go to Italy, they speak Italian. Right in England, they all speak English. You go to Wales, they will speak Welsh, but very little. You go to Scotland, they all speak the Scottish way, but very little, because English supersedes everything there. The same is in America, but look at us. I would love to hear all the guys talking from Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Uganda. I would love to hear that language. We have one language and we are talking. Look at our medicines. Look at the medicines. You will never see where they will put interpretation of Africa. But they will put Chinese, they will put Japanese, they will put English. For God's sake, for what? I look at it and say, what the hell is on it for these guys? What about these other guys? The millions of guys in Africa, this thing goes to them and kills them every day. So I am not against the learning of or having huge degree. What I am against is when we learn it, let's go and enlighten, not to make them look like different people, but to look like they respect their own traditions.
I think we need to have another definition of what learning is.
Yeah.
Because what we are doing is not learning. I would want to posit that what we are actually doing is not learning. Because if we were learning, we could be coming up with solutions to our problems.
Yeah.
But the reason why we we don't come up with solutions is because, like Makombe said, we are just regurgitating information. There is no saying we have learned, now what can we fashion? Because when we do things in Africa, it's just like following the path that others in the West or wherever have followed. You cannot diverge from that pathway. But for me, learning is actually thinking outside the box and diverge, come up with your own solutions that even the world can sit up and say, wow, this is a different way of doing things. This is a different way of looking at space. This is a different way of drug discovery. This is a different way of making shoes, you know, not to say you have learned because you went to Italy to learn to make shoes and you stick to that way of making shoes forever.
What we are lacking is creativity.
Innovation.
Yeah, we are lacking creativity. And when we get that creativity, we'll put it at the bottom of our suitcase so that nobody knows about it.
The problem is that we've been made to believe that we are inferior.
Yeah.
So if we are made to believe that, if you look, let's look at Shuma has just been talking about the medicines and doctors there. Look here, you a doctor from the West and treats someone with a wound, gets healed, right? Then you get someone who is using his medicine in Africa, treats the same wound and it gets good. But that one is called a witch doctor. And that one is a doctor.
Yes.
So you are not called a witch doctor. Already, you don't want to come inside that.
We have got Fungai on the line who is differing with a lot of us guys talking. He started by differing with the Makombe when he says AI is even more dangerous. And he asks you, Makombe, where do you live? and I don't know whether he was referring to Shumba or Nathaniel when he said this guy who is talking is lost, and he finally says we don't know what is happening around us. I will give a link to on the chat to say Fungai, if you want to come and differ with what people are talking in the panel here, we have got another 7 minutes. We can give you an opportunity to say what you want to say. And whoever is also on the line, you can put your comments in the chat box, or we can use this opportunity for you to come along.
I think Fungai is more suited for Sungai Mbabu. Because the way he's going about differing with every person.
You're very right.
Yeah, because I think, to be honest, we need because what you find with the Western researchers, they come to Africa, they embed themselves within the system. One thing I think for us is we don't know how to protect intellectual property.
Yeah.
So they come to Africa. They've got this patience that you can see someone can go and live in Mondoro or Murewa for 20 years.
We can't give value to our resources. That's the problem.
Because
we just give. That is in a.
No, but we have the knowledge. We have always had the knowledge of, if we said if we just presume that we didn't have like solutions or medicines for our diseases, we would have been wiped out with African diseases.
Yeah.
Some of the most dangerous diseases you will find in the world are tropical diseases.
Yes.
You go to universities like Liverpool here in the UK who are dedicated to studying tropical medicine.
Yeah.
So
malaria.
So, which means if we as Africans had not mastered how to survive in such an environment, the environment would have wiped us out.
Really is.
So we have solutions, but
Okay.
it's the way now we go about bringing those solutions to our people and to the world. That's where, like, we have so much tied ourselves to the Western way of thinking, like what Soko said, to the detriment of developing our own systems to say, we know this thing works. How can we bring it, like in Zimbabwe, to say it becomes on top of the Western medicine? We
Yeah.
become to agree to say this is something that works for us.
And we cannot give it out easily. No, you buy it from us.
Exactly.
Yeah. We have malaria medicine. It's a root. Even when I'm in Africa, I get malaria. I don't go and buy anything. When I leave, I don't go with malaria medicine. The moment we get the leaf, the roots, they boil it. They dry it, they boil it. I sip it a bit. The whole setup is maybe the content of drinking it. And sometimes, knowing what I would know, I will drink a little bit, until the malaria is gone. And these things are there. And even the paste, we have a root. When you get that root, you clean it properly, you brush your teeth. It's whiter than this, whatever they do here. Those things are there, but nobody is picking it up.
Yeah, but
this one is saying Africans are so drunk with pulling
Yeah,
down
this-
syndrome.
This
That
is
everything
this is
begins with
this
you,
is
my brother,
Nyasha.
whoever you are. Everything
Thi-
begins with you.
This is
think-
Nyasha.
Drunkenness
I think when colonization came, the best thing they did is make us take away our confidence and make us take away our identity, because they actually made us believe that everything about us is evil.
It's evil. You're right.
And we are still in that, because if you go to churches right now, that's what we believe, that's what we do. Like your ancestors are evil. That means your ancestor is your identity. So if your identity is evil, how can you believe in yourself?
I've always questioned the regalia with the Mothers Union, where across Africa, this particular church wears
Why
this.
people
In
don't do
this
that?
country, they do not do
They
that.
don't wear that.
Exactly.
They do
It's
not.
because
There's
that's
an
how they
African church here,
colonized
but
us.
they don't wear anything.
You know,
That's how-
I'll give you. I grew up in the Seventh-day Adventist church. Yeah.
Yeah.
You saw that. You see this green stuff that they wear in Africa.
Yeah.
You don't see them wearing them here in the West or
No, they don't.
in America.
Because, it's because we needed to be branded. They needed to brand us. They needed to unify us, take away our identity and bring
Are
their
you
own.
saying we couldn't unify ourselves?
We
with our
could,
chiefs?
but right now we lost all that. Right now, even ginger, we only started drinking it because of COVID. People were saying, "Oh, atite midzi susu, midzi nde evil, midzi kunyebere."
Yeah.
But unowa paracetamol. Paracetamol yakagadzirwa nei?
Right. This is the same Nyasha who is saying no African leader is willing to unify the continent. They will start fighting of those language to use and who will be the leader before anything else. Look at
that's
AU,
Nyasha.
Parliament, Congress, and all are like baboons.
Yeah, but this is my argument. When people always say African leaders or African politicians, I always say African politicians or African leaders are just a reflection of us.
Yeah.
Because these people are not coming out of a vacuum.
No, absolutely.
They are a sample set of us as Africans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did
So which
say
means
so.
the pool from which these leaders are coming from is where things are
Yeah,
wrong.
part and parcel
And
of that
yeah,
process.
and if it's not corrected, we're gonna keep on pulling that kind of leadership set. If you've done sets, you know what I'm talking about. You're picking from a number of things, and that leadership is just a reflection of what's wrong with your society.
Right. And I think Nyasha continues to make a comment there, and he says, "We know herbs works you still need technology to commercialize it. There's no willpower from those with resources. They buy cars and build mansions.
Willpower begins with you.
They said in these here parts, people who had been in sects, when they come out of sect, they need to be deprogrammed.
Yeah.
We need to be deprogrammed of colonization because
Bring Nyasha up.
we are still
Yeah, bring
colonized
Nyasha up,
up
yeah.
here. Even now, we are
Nyasha is,
still colonized.
I've put a link in the chat box. If Nyasha is watching from YouTube, they can join the last few minutes.
Atacha mbokangashana naye je.
Uh,
But I think on this last topic, on his last comment, I think that's what I already said when I was saying the problem is, I don't know whether it is bureaucracy or what happens when you want to establish a new thing. For instance, if you want a herb to be commercialized or actually to be accepted as something that can work, it takes a lot of effort and a lot of distractions and everything to actually
But it's
tear you
corruption.
apart.
But then that's corruption, Kajan.
Gatekeepers.
Yeah.
If you know people who are gatekeepers,
Mm.
because it's like your students, like at your University of Zimbabwe, right? We were discussing this with my friends. There's a system that is used by Zimra. It was long abandoned by the UK here, but Zimra is still using it, trying to put fixes here and there. But you've got young people at University of Zimbabwe, NAST at Harare Institute of Technology, who you can go to and say, can you create a software system for us to run this department, this government department? But they don't do that because you've got gatekeepers who are paid by these software companies, whether in the West, to say, oh, keep on maintaining that, we give you a kickback. So they'll keep on saying, no, we can't move from this system because it's more reliable than what you are trying to do. You see? So that's where we end up with these gatekeepers. Of course, it's bureaucracy, but it's a sort of gatekeeping approach whereby someone is benefiting and he just wants to maintain the status quo.
I was saying before, many of us need to be deprogrammed because we are still colonized up here. We don't have the belief that we can actually run our own lives. Even now, and we're passing it down to our children. The fact that we pass to our children that we are not good enough, that there are some people who are better than us just because of the color of their skin. We don't have that confidence to stand up. How many people would actually stand up? We say, Basi, oh yes, ma'am. But when it comes to Misha, if it's Misha talking, I'm like, we don't have that confidence. If a black person does something, our own community will say, there must be a white person behind it. We are not clever like that. We don't believe that. We don't believe that we can actually run Africa. This is why we keep asking. Why? We got
Plus, we also
brainy people in Africa, but we don't have that. We need to be deprogrammed up here.
That's true.
But we still have a few guys who have actually changed or diverted to the betterment
and
of
what do we
themselves.
do?
I'll give you
What do we
Makombe.
do?
I'm going to
What
give
do
you
we do with them?
Makombe. Makombe, I'm going to give you the problem is that remember Nyasha was saying we've got a pulling down syndrome.
Yeah.
When someone diverts, then we start to always to be talking the negatives about them. I'll give you very few funny examples. Let's look at Magaya, Makandiwa, Passion, Java, Chivayo. Do you think what they're doing is something that is straightforward from learning and being an academic and then going on? They just talked about
that's
So where came
negative
up?
creativity. Negative creativity is supposed to be there. Zoom talked about that.
Let's
It's
talk
there.
about it. What is the they
Yeah,
went to the outlook the last part.
But that's not how a society functions, you
no,
know.
there are certain norms and values.
There's I've
Yeah.
seen a video today that said a Jew who made money, and he was asked how he made money. Jew said
Shumba, you can take the thing. My network, I think, is playing up.
Oh, okay.
I was talking about the video I saw today that said this Jew was explaining how they become rich.
Oh,
He
yeah.
said because if one Jew becomes rich, 5 Jews are
Everybody.
rich.
Jews are very united, yes.
Yes, and because if I become rich, nobody else should become rich around me. This is why we are talking about these few people who are doing what they are doing. And then they throw around, I give you a car. People go, hey, I got a car. No, I don't want
Imagine now how is that big?
I don't want fish. I want to learn to fish as well, so I can fish for myself. Why are you throwing a fish at me? A car for what? I can't even repair the car. I can't even afford the petrol to put in the car. And you're giving me a car for what? This is what we do. We need to look at how these Jews are Nyasha Pindas. Okay.
Let's come back to call to COVID. Navarro.
Sort of.
No. Don't say that.
No. This is not fungi.
No, this is Nyasha, not fungi.
Oh, that's Nyasha. Oh, the other one is fungi.
Yes.
Yes. What I'm saying was because you're not saying.
Oh, I don't know this one. Sorry. I'm sorry, sir. Is it a say or
We are waiting for you, sir.
We are waiting for you to talk.
Have your break.
Are you there, Nyasha?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear
Yes,
you.
we can hear you.
Thank you very much for having me. Yeah, very exciting conversations, but like I said before, we have a very long way to go. To start with, us Africans, we might be bragging to say it starts with me, it starts with those with the means of production. That is one thing for a fact. You can be Kwakanzota, where there's nothing that we can touch that can give you any value in your life. We have got 5 goats. How can we start off commercializing a manufacturing a plant? So what we are saying is, for those with those willpower and those with those means, we can actually make a difference. In so doing, those people who have got the means, they've got the capacity of keeping you out. They'll crowd you out. That crowding out theory, where you are kept out of whatever you think you want to do because they want to protect their means of production. This is not a very easy thing. Like, it's just a walk in the park where we think, let's just do this because we can. As Africans, let's do this. We can talk and talk and talk, but as long as we have got leaders with the willpower, and we are saying leaders because those are the guys who control the means of production in a country. For example, in Zimbabwe or in Africa per se, right now we are cherishing Traore, that guy. Why? Because he has got a vision. He's a leader who has come with a vision. He's saying this is what is going to happen for the country. So without leadership, without direct leadership, we might say we make the leaders, but without the leadership with a vision, we are wasting time because we have got diamonds, 7 strategic minerals in Zimbabwe.
Yeah. Listen, I've got a learned friend who keeps talking about institutions. And that's where we should start. Without any institutional culture, we are not going to develop into anything. And you perfectly know that. We need to create clusters that subsidize whatever we are trying to design or trying to create.
Who creates them? Leadership. Can we just create
not necessarily leadership? It could be. Why do we think? I mean, this is where the problem is. We keep thinking, I mean, when we've got a lead person, then we've got leadership.
You need structures. You need structures, Makombe. Right now, it's the 7 of us. The 7 of us. Yes, that is what I'm saying. It's leadership. If you have got an institution with a leader with no focus, For example, to be honest, we need dictators in Africa, progressive
Yeah,
dictators.
exactly.
We need
I've
dictators.
always said that.
Yeah.
Mm.
We need dictators who have got vision, who have got foresight. Like that Traore guy is a dictator. But what is it? We don't have evidence, but what we read is what we talk about. We talk of Colonel Gaddafi. You say he was a dictator. But what was happening with Libya? You talk of all these democracies which don't work. So what I'm saying is institutions, they need leaders. You cannot just say, okay, go to Mbari and then get a bunch of windies and just chuck them anywhere else and say, guys, lead yourself. What do you think they will do?
They will lead.
What?
They will create their own
when I'm
institution
done,
in that formative structure.
I think that's where I agree with Nyasha to say we need this. I think this democracy experiment has got to end.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to end this democracy experiment because it doesn't work. It's a mirage for us to be maiming and killing each other whilst our resources are being spirited away.
Yeah.
So what we need is visionary leaders. The problem is if you just push for a dictator, and then the dilemma you might have is you have a dictator with no vision.
Yeah.
And then you'll have, and
that's the problem.
if he knows how to amass power, then you go another 50 years without removing him because he's a master of knowing how to manipulate power. But if you've got a leadership with a vision who knows where he wants to take the country, because remember, people like Lee Kuan Yew who sorted out Singapore, he was accused by the West of being a dictator. But he knew where he wanted to take Singapore to. So this is the kind of vision that we want. But as long as we are practicing these elections, it's not a popular belief, but I've been championing it for years now. But our people love that tension of elections, fighting each other, shouting at each other. We need to remove the political cycle for us to be able to get into development mode.
Mr. Jenna.
Guys, without a dictator, it's good to have a dictator according to your theories, but the problem is that dictator is that person who is coming with no brains. Then what do we do?
You guys are failing to understand the positive corruption, which works very well in their design clusters.
Yes.
Who is not a dictator in the democratic system that we understand? Who is not a dictator? The biggest democracy is America. What is Trump doing? So what I'm saying is he's a dictator. So when
right, okay. Let's come back to our topic of discussion. Yes, we fail. I think leadership is another topic that we can talk about. Let's zero down
inequality.
to the inequalities that are being brought by pandemic, and I think our time is almost, so I think we need to be winding down. But the greatest sentiment that is going through is it exposed some gaps, especially whether the global south, when they accepted things like lockdown, did they ever did an analysis to see whether their means of production were consistent with following suit the Western world, which was overcrowded and can only solve the problem by lockdown? So I don't know. It's a question that I can throw back to the panelists as we do our closing remarks.
Okay, I'll go first, and I think you touched on a very important point. There are countries that completely refused to shut down, and they came out of it, out of COVID quite well. I think one of them was if I remember, it was Sweden. They didn't shut down. And then in America, there are some states that didn't shut down. And their economies did quite well. So, the problem is when we talk of Africa just being a begging bowl, we're not only a begging bowl for money, for finance, we are a begging bowl for ideas. We sort of, everything that has been decided in the West, it becomes something that we need to implement. We don't look at the repercussions to us, whether that sort of the things that are being recommended, they really suit in our environment. So that's where the problem is. And I feel like until we break away from that kind of thinking, it's not only COVID. We are past COVID now. Now we are in a geopolitical game of strong powers, whereby you can see hard power is now working. When I talk of hard power, you're talking of military might. Is now what's at play. So if you don't put your act together, we're going to be at the receiving end again, not of COVID. We have already passed the COVID. Now we're going to the world of hard power. We're going to be at the receiving end of being told what to do. We saw Cyril Ramaphosa going to Washington and being lectured about his own country. So this is what's awaiting us if we don't put our act together. I think that's all I can say for now. Thank you.
Okay, I can come after you. Then we can say, I think I will agree with Soko when she says we need to decolonize our brains. And in order for us to be decolonized in our brains, we have to go back to the curriculum, which makes us inferior and makes the Westerners superior. Because of that, we are always given prescriptions on how to run our lives. If you listen to what Shumba said, that prescription of lockdown and what have you was based on the people, how they live in the Western countries there. If you look at me on my farm here, the other neighbor is about 2 kilometers away from here. So why should I lock down myself and not go to my field? We should actually, then we look at what Nasha was saying, that we don't have one person to maybe to leaders unifying Africa so that you can meet and then discuss how best we can solve the issue according to our means and our arrangement that we have, geospatial that he was talking about now. We cannot just copy and paste. It doesn't work like that. Thank you.
Can I chip in there? Based on the topic of discussion, yes, post-pandemic, whatever, it's meant to do that. It has to grow. This was created in the lab. It was meant to do exactly what it's doing. Even the technological gaps, are widening. Why? Because they meant it to be like that.
Exactly.
Right now we are talking of AI. AI is a far-fetched idea for us in Africa when 80% of the people don't have internet. And you think when we don't have internet, you are going to be enjoying AI. For what? When your mother doesn't even know what broadband is, the speed of internet is so slow. And the availability of that is so minimum. They make it so expensive that information to spread, it's a mammoth task for anyone to have access to that. So this is a deliberate way by those people with the means of production to make sure that we are so subdued and the gap keeps widening and widening. That is how people make money. Yeah.
Thank you. Nathaniel, final thoughts?
It gives me a great headache, really, when I think about what happened. I will show you that is the issue of the economic effect on all global areas. Individually, they felt it. If you look at why they have to ask us to lock down. They have to ask us to lock down because they want to gain more money from the other side or not gain money. The planes will not go to Africa. None of the African countries have their made plane. They buy it from Europe. So we don't want your plane to come to England. Stop over there. That is it. We had Ebola in Sierra Leone. The lockdown was within the environment, but England never said, "Oh, you have Ebola." No, they said, "You have Ebola. We can't send plane there. You have COVID. You can't send plane there." All these things. It's just we don't have our own means of production. I think when you guys we are talking about colonization, I think it's industrialization Africa needs. When the white people went into industrialization, they were able to make up things there. And they just use that as an excuse. That's why even like ruling in Africa, look at Africa. They went and took chieftaincy, especially in my own area. These people were king in their own sections. They said, no, we have king in England. You cannot be king, so you can be a chief. That's a subordinate title. So when we come to all this Ebola and what it happens, what it made us to feel, let's say thanks to God, some of us are alive to talk about it, and let's keep talking about it for the next generation. Like my brother who came in, I never wanted to name a president into this section, but he's fighting his own fight, and even within his own society, they are fighting him to get rid of him. This has been always the issue. So all we will say, all to all of us, the language I always say, Africa, unite. Unite for your own children. That is our great grandchildren, not your child. Notice your child now, his own grandchild will be maybe to see the betterment. Or else we will never. When we are dead in our grave, maybe that's the time Africa will stand up because we have everything. Even when they say washing hand liquid, this washing hand things is from line. They still buy it. If we don't get, if you don't have that thing, we don't spray from it. I say, where is this from? Oh, it's from Europe. Oh, come on. I can wash my hand with the soap.
It's a good program. Thank you very much. And I think
Yeah,
Mm.
I think you okay. I think your volume has gone down.
yeah,
Okay.
I'm hearing you. It's just I'm a little boy. All the time I have telephone.
Uh, all right. Wow.
Mm.
This was a powerful exchange. My deepest thanks to our courageous panelists who we are speaking with such a clarity and courage and commitment to truth. And tonight we have seen that inequality is not just about incomes, it's about access to knowledge, access to hard power, as Shumba has been saying, and as Nyasha, who just joined us, says even we can't even talk about technology, about AI when our grandmothers don't even have access to Wi-Fi or broadband. So let me just sum up the final thoughts from our panelists. We have lost the Soko and the Makombe, but the Shumba says sometimes the countries that we were shutting down, we were just copying and pasting things that we did without any resemblance of what is actually happening in our communities. And if we don't put our acts together, because I think the global north is focusing on hard power, and if not care is not taken, we will be on the receiving end. And Jenna re-emphasized the need to decolonize our minds, begin to have our own mindset. and I think he gave a scenario which is quite metaphoric, when he said his neighbor is 2 kilometers away. So what was lockdown for him and his neighbor, and barring him from to going to his fields and work, this copy and paste, which is still coming back again. And I think Nyasha agreed with the first assertion that was done by Jenna when we started, when he said he feels this was created in the lab. And I think Nyasha shares the same sentiment that this was created in the lab with the idea of widening the gap. It might be economic, or it can't be technology. Even we can't even talk of AI, because we don't even have the electricity and the connectivity to sustain it. For Nathaniel, if he thinks about it, it's only a headache for him. And he says one of these interesting comments was in Sierra Leone, they are not allowed to have kings because we have got a king in England. So this was a powerful conversation, and as always at Champion Network TV, we believe in amplifying voices that disrupt and the status quo, and reimagining what is possible. As we have been discussing, that I think our educational system need re-looking at it. We needed to move from this knowledge where we just regurgitate what we were taught in class. So until next time, stay bold and stay curious, stay committed to justice. And as your host, Mija, I thank you for watching, and those who were watching us online. I always say we don't take it for granted when you spend your time engaging with us. So good night, and good night to our panelists.
Good night.
Good night.